When Leonardo DiCaprio woke up screaming in his London hotel room for the seventh consecutive night, he wasn't sure if he was still dreaming or finally awake. The Inception filming had pushed him so deep into experimental lucid dreaming techniques that the boundaries between reality and dreams had completely dissolved. Marion Cotillard found him that morning, catatonic and whispering, "We need to go deeper," over and over again. What happened during those lost weeks nearly cost Leo his sanity and his life. Before we dive into this mind-bending true story, don't forget to comment where you're listening to this from. Now, let's get into the story. July 3, 2009, Cardington Airfield, Bedfordshire, England. The massive airplane hangar had been transformed into Christopher Nolan's vision of limbo, an endless, dreamlike landscape where time moved differently and reality became negotiable. Leonardo DiCaprio, preparing to play Dom Cobb, a man who could enter and manipulate dreams, had convinced Nolan to let him undergo actual lucid dreaming training with Dr. Stephen LaBerge, the world's leading expert on conscious dreaming at Stanford University. What started as character research became a dangerous psychological experiment that would blur the lines between Leo's consciousness and the fictional dream world they were creating. Dr. LaBerge had initially been hesitant to work with an actor on such an intense scale. Lucid dreaming research is serious neuroscience, he warned Leo during their first meeting. We're talking about altering consciousness, manipulating sleep cycles, and potentially accessing parts of the psyche that most people never experience. This isn't acting preparation, this is experimental psychology. But Leo was insistent. He wanted to understand not just how to portray someone who could control dreams, but how to actually experience the sensation of conscious dreaming himself. The training began innocuously enough. Dr. LaBerge taught Leo reality-checking techniques, dream journaling, and meditation practices designed to increase awareness during REM sleep. But Leo, with his characteristic intensity, pushed every technique to its absolute limit. He began spending 12 to 14 hours per day in various states of altered consciousness, using a combination of meditation, sensory deprivation, and experimental sleep interruption techniques that Dr. LaBerge had warned were still in clinical trials. Marion Cotillard, who was playing Mal, Dom Cobb's deceased wife who haunts his dreams, noticed the changes in Leo almost immediately. "At first, I thought it was just his usual method acting preparation," she later confided to director Christopher Nolan. "But there was something different about his eyes, the way he would stare at nothing for long periods, the way he would suddenly ask me if I was real. It was unsettling in a way that went beyond character work." The first sign of serious trouble came during filming of the famous spinning top scene. Leo was supposed to spin the totem and watch it carefully to determine if he was dreaming or awake. But instead of following the script, he became genuinely obsessed with the top's behavior, spinning it compulsively between takes and staring at it with an intensity that concerned everyone on set. "Leo," Nolan approached him after the 15th consecutive take, "we got the shot. You can stop spinning the top now." Leo's response chilled the entire crew. "But how do I know if I'm awake, Chris? How do I really know?" The situation escalated when Leo began incorporating Dr. LaBerge's experimental techniques into his daily routine without proper supervision. He started using a device called a Nova Dreamer, which detects REM sleep and delivers light cues to trigger lucid dreaming, but he modified it to deliver much more intense stimulation than recommended. He would spend entire nights in a state between waking and sleeping, experiencing what he described in his journal as layer after layer of consciousness, like Russian nesting dolls of reality. The psychological breakdown began during the filming of the hotel corridor fight scene. The sequence, where Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character fights in a rotating hallway while the dreamers experience zero gravity, was technically complex and required multiple takes over several days. But Leo's behavior during breaks became increasingly erratic and disconnected from reality. He would walk off set and be found hours later in various locations: the hotel lobby, a nearby park, once even at Heathrow Airport, with no memory of how he'd gotten there. Dr. Patricia Evans, the film's psychological consultant, was called in when Leo missed an entire day of shooting. She found him in his trailer, surrounded by dozens of notebooks filled with detailed dream journals, architectural sketches of impossible buildings, and what appeared to be maps of non-existent locations. "Leonardo," she said carefully, "can you tell me where you are right now?" His His response was terrifying. "I'm in the third level down, maybe the fourth. The elevator keeps going down, but the floors all look the same. Marion is here somewhere, but she's not real. Or maybe I'm not real. The top is still spinning." Marion Cotillard, who had developed a close working relationship with Leo during their previous collaboration on Blood Diamond, recognized the severity of his condition. She began staying late on set to monitor his behavior, and what she discovered was deeply disturbing. Leo had stopped distinguishing between the dream sequences they were filming and his actual experiences. He would refer to events from the script as if they were memories from his real life, and he seemed genuinely convinced that Marion was his dead wife, Mal, not his co-star. The crisis deepened when Leo began attempting to perform extraction, the fictional technique from the movie where ideas are stolen from someone's subconscious during dreams, on other cast members and crew. During lunch breaks, he would approach people and try to engage them in conversations designed to uncover their deepest secrets using techniques that seemed to come from the film's fictional dream-sharing technology. Tom Hardy later described feeling genuinely violated by Leo's probing questions and the way he seemed to be trying to get inside people's minds. Christopher Nolan, known for his intellectual approach to filmmaking, found himself in an unprecedented situation. His lead actor was having what appeared to be a complete psychological break, but the performance that was emerging from Leo's condition was undeniably brilliant. The authentic confusion, the genuine terror, the real sense of a man lost between layers of reality, it was exactly what the character of Dom Cobb required. Nolan faced an ethical dilemma that would haunt him for years. Should he stop production to get Leo help, or continue filming while his actor's genuine psychological crisis created the most authentic performance of his career? The decision was made for him when Marion Cotillard found Leo unconscious in his hotel room, surrounded by the modified lucid dreaming equipment. He had been attempting to induce what Dr. LaBerge later described as artificial REM sleep using a dangerous combination of sensory deprivation, electromagnetic stimulation, and sleep deprivation. When paramedics arrived, Leo's brain activity showed patterns consistent with someone experiencing multiple simultaneous dreams, something that medical science had never documented in a living patient. The private medical facility in Surrey where Leonardo DiCaprio was taken specialized in treating what psychiatrists call reality dissociation disorders, conditions where patients lose the ability to distinguish between genuine experiences and false memories, dreams, or hallucinations. Dr. Michael Chen, who led Leo's treatment team, had never seen a case quite like this one. Mr. DiCaprio's brain scans showed unusual activity in regions associated with both REM sleep and wakeful consciousness, he explained to Marion Cotillard and Christopher Nolan. He appears to be experiencing a condition we might call persistent lucid dreaming. His mind is generating dream-like experiences while he's awake. Marion became Leo's primary link to reality during those dark weeks. She would visit him daily, spending hours in what Dr. Chen called reality anchoring sessions, conversations designed to help Leo distinguish between his actual memories and the false experiences generated by his altered consciousness. "Leonardo," she would say patiently, "I'm Marion Cotillard. I'm an actress from France. We are making a movie called Inception. You are not Dom Cobb. I'm not Mal. This is not a dream." But Leo's condition was more complex than simple delusion. The experimental lucid dreaming techniques had created what Dr. Chen described as artificial dream memories that were indistinguishable from real experiences in Leo's mind. He genuinely believed that he and Marion had been married, that she had committed suicide by jumping from a building, that he was responsible for her death. These weren't conscious acting choices. They were false memories created by the intersection of intensive method acting and experimental neuroscience. The most disturbing aspect of Leo's condition was his relationship with the concept of kicks, the falling sensation used in the movie to wake dreamers up from deeper levels of dreams. Leo had become convinced that the only way to return to base reality was to experience increasingly dangerous physical sensations. Dr. Chen's medical notes, obtained through court documents years later, revealed that Leo had attempted to harm himself multiple times, believing that pain or injury would kick him awake from what he perceived as an elaborate dream. Christopher Nolan, meanwhile, was facing pressure from Warner Brothers to either replace Leo or shut down production entirely. The studio had invested $160 million in the film, and their lead actor was hospitalized with a condition that psychiatrists couldn't fully explain or predict the recovery time for. But Nolan made a controversial decision. He would continue filming around Leo's scenes while waiting for his recovery, using the authentic footage of Leo's psychological breakdown that had been captured before his hospitalization. Marion Cotillard found herself in an impossible position. She was not only trying to help her friend recover from a psychological crisis, but she was also being pressured by the studio to convince him to return to work. They wanted me to tell Leo that finishing the film would help him recover, she later revealed. But I could see that the film itself had caused his breakdown. The character of Dom Cobb, the themes of guilt and lost love, the confusion between dreams and reality. It had all become too real for him. The breakthrough in Leo's treatment came when Dr. Chen introduced what he called narrative therapy, helping Leo create a clear, linear story of his actual life that could serve as an anchor point for reality. Marion played a crucial role in this process, helping Leo reconstruct his real memories. Leonardo DiCaprio's return to the Inception set after 6 weeks in psychiatric care was unlike any comeback in Hollywood history. Dr. Chen had cleared him for work, but only under strict conditions. He would be monitored by medical staff at all times. He was forbidden from using any lucid dreaming techniques, and Marion Cotillard had been designated as his reality anchor, someone who would regularly remind him of what was real and what was part of the performance. The insurance company required these unprecedented precautions before they would allow Leo to complete the film. The first scene Leo filmed after his return was the final confrontation with Mal in limbo, the deepest level of dreams where time moves slowest and the mind is most vulnerable. Christopher Nolan had rewritten the scene to incorporate elements of Leo's real psychological journey, blurring the line between his character's fictional trauma and his actual recovery process. When Leo delivered the line, "You're not real, Mal, you're just a projection of my guilt," he wasn't just acting. He was performing a form of therapy, using the fictional framework to process his real psychological break. Marion's performance in these scenes was equally extraordinary, but for different reasons. She had to portray Mal, the seductive projection who tries to convince Dom to stay in the dream world forever, while simultaneously serving as Leo's anchor to reality. "It was the most psychologically complex acting I've ever done," she later explained. "I had to be terrifying and seductive as Mal, while also being Marion, the person who could remind Leo that none of this was real. I was essentially playing two different roles for two different audiences, Mal for the camera and Marion for Leo's recovery." The film's famous ending, where Dom spins the top but walks away before seeing if it falls, suggesting he no longer cares if he's dreaming or awake, was actually inspired by Leo's recovery process. Dr. Chen had taught him that the obsessive need to distinguish between dreams and reality was part of his pathology. "The goal isn't to always know if you're dreaming," the doctor explained. "The goal is to be comfortable with uncertainty, to function whether you're dreaming or awake." But completing the film took an enormous psychological toll on everyone involved. Marion began experiencing her own sleep disturbances, having nightmares where she couldn't wake up Leo from increasingly deep levels of dreams. Christopher Nolan, typically precise and controlled, found himself questioning his own perception of reality after months of working with concepts of layered consciousness and false memories. The entire production became a study in the dangerous intersection between art and psychology. The most disturbing incident occurred during the filming of the scene where Dom and Mal grow old together in limbo. Leo became so immersed in the fictional shared dream that he began experiencing what appeared to be shared hallucinations with Marion. Both actors later described identical visions of a life they had never lived together, a house that didn't exist, children they had never had, conversations that had never occurred in reality. Dr. Chen was called to the set and observed that both actors were exhibiting signs of folie à deux, a psychiatric condition where shared delusions develop between two people. The production was nearly shut down permanently when Leo, during what was supposed to be the final take of his final scene, turned to Marion and said something that wasn't in the script. "I remember now. We really were married, weren't we? In another layer, in another life." Marion's response, captured on film, was equally unscripted. "No, Leo, but I remember it too, and that's what makes it dangerous." Christopher Nolan called cut and immediately called Dr. Chen, realizing that the experimental filmmaking process had created. The release of Inception in July 2010 was accompanied by unprecedented secrecy about what had occurred during production. Warner Brothers implemented a strict non-disclosure agreement that prohibited anyone involved in the film from discussing Leonardo DiCaprio's psychological breakdown or the experimental methods used in his preparation. The official story was that Leo had taken a brief medical leave for exhaustion, but industry insiders knew the truth was far more disturbing and complex. The film's massive success and cultural impact were achieved at a cost that the public never knew. Leo's performance, praised for its authentic portrayal of a man haunted by guilt and unable to distinguish between dreams and reality, was so convincing because it wasn't entirely a performance. The confusion, the desperation, the genuine terror in his eyes, all of it came from his real experience of losing touch with reality during the film's production. Marion Cotillard's career was permanently changed by her experience on Inception. She became an advocate for actor mental health and worked with the Screen Actors Guild to develop new protocols for psychologically challenging roles. "What happened to Leo could happen to any actor who pushes method acting to dangerous extremes," she warned in a rare interview about the experience. "We have a responsibility to protect performers from the psychological risks of their craft." Dr. Stephen LaBerge, whose lucid dreaming research had contributed to Leo's breakdown, withdrew his cooperation from all entertainment industry projects. In a letter to the Stanford University Ethics Committee, he wrote, "The entertainment industry's pursuit of authenticity led to the weaponization of scientific research designed to help people. Mr. DiCaprio's case demonstrates that some knowledge is too dangerous to be used for artistic purposes." Leonardo DiCaprio never spoke publicly about his experience during Inception, but those close to him noticed lasting changes. He became more withdrawn, more careful about accepting roles that might require psychological extremes. His subsequent choice to focus on environmental activism rather than challenging dramatic roles was seen by some as a conscious decision to avoid the psychological risks that had nearly destroyed him during Inception. The film's famous spinning top, which has become an iconic symbol of questioning reality, held a different meaning for those who knew the true story of the production. For Leo, the top represented not just the uncertainty between dreams and reality, but the dangerous obsession with certainty that had led to his psychological breakdown. In his private life, he kept no spinning tops, no objects that might trigger memories of those lost weeks when he couldn't distinguish between his dreams and his waking life. Christopher Nolan, despite the critical and commercial success of Inception, expressed private regrets about the methods used in the film's creation. "We achieved unprecedented authenticity in portraying the confusion between dreams and reality," he told a close friend, "but the cost was nearly destroying our lead actor's mind. Some artistic achievements aren't worth the human price we pay for them." Today, film students who analyze Inception's complex narrative structure and psychological themes are unaware that they're studying a work created through actual psychological experimentation and breakdown. The film's exploration of guilt, memory, and the nature of reality wasn't just intellectual speculation. It was the product of a real person's journey to the edge of sanity and back. The Inception protocols, quietly implemented by major studios after Leo's breakdown, now require psychological evaluation and medical supervision for any actor undertaking roles involving altered consciousness, experimental psychology, or extended method acting techniques. It's a safeguard that Leo himself helped develop, ensuring that no other performer would have to experience the terrifying loss of reality that nearly cost him his career and his sanity during those dark months when dreams and waking life became indistinguishable. This is the mind-bending true story of how Leonardo DiCaprio's method acting for Inception led to a complete psychological breakdown and loss of reality. Thank you for listening to this incredible journey into the dangerous intersection of art and consciousness. Don't forget to rate our story out of 10 in the comments and tell us which other Leonardo DiCaprio psychological story you'd like us to explore next. Until next time, remember that some performances require sacrificing pieces of yourself that you may never get back.